December 29th, 2016. It is Thursday. I tend to lose track of days very often, but what I do know is that Saturday is New Year's Eve, so we are like on the verge of this new year, 2017, a whole new world in front of us with, if you're from America, a whole new president or a regime, and a whole lot of new things that, I guess like we're moving to the future. And basically, because we're moving to the future, I was thinking about what are some things that we can talk about, or what's something that would be interesting that is directly relevant to that. And the thing that came to my mind was our generations. For a while now, the millennial generation has been the focus because we've been the ones in the workplace for the last couple, what did it say, almost 10 years or so, maybe like 8, maybe more like 7 or 6. I don't know, 6 to 8 years, I would say probably we've been in the workforce, and we've been adults, for that long, I guess I would say. But now you have this new generation, the ones that were born basically 1995 onwards, and they're called the Generation Z, or the I generation, or the Centennial generation. There's a couple different names for them, and actually after researching, I discovered that the generation acquires its name once you understand what it is. So like they give you like a very bland like generation. Like we were Generation Y. I'm a millennial. We were Generation Y before we really took on the form of the millennial. Generation Z will take on a different form. But I wanted to bring this up because I think, yesterday I talked about hiring people, or just like the concept of like things that you have to confront when you're an entrepreneur, or you're looking to expand, into new realms. It doesn't even necessarily have to be in business. It can be creative realms as well, where you're working with other people, and you're exchanging value. So because I'm interested in that kind of stuff, it only seems relevant to talk about Generation Z, because those are definitely guys and girls that I will be working with in the very near future. And it's fascinating to think about a generation that has no idea what life is like without an iPhone, what life is like without Facebook or social media, what life is like without, I guess I would say, you say an African American president, life without sexual rights, like gay freedom, life without, I'm trying to think of, there's a lot of things. Life without things like Amazon, where you can just order a product. Like I live in Austin, and I can literally, we have Amazon Prime now, so basically I can order a product, and I've done this before. I ordered some cookies or something online, and they were delivered because I ordered directly from the Amazon store. They delivered it to me within a half an hour, and that was crazy. I was like, wow, we're in the future for sure. And so now we have this generation that's literally that's just the norm. And they say with technology isn't like something of the future. It's not seen or perceived as something in the future, or something that's advanced in any ways, unless you know what the technology came, unless you're aware of the technology that came before it. So basically, everything, these kids are these kids that are being born now, everything that they're perceiving is the norm, and it's not exciting, it's nothing new, it's nothing crazy. While we're just whoa, this is oh my gosh, look at all these things I can do on my phone. I literally can do everything from my phone, and I can order any product I want from my phone and have it arrive at my house in a half an hour. That's whoa, this is crazy, this is amazing. And for them it's nothing new, I can do that, so that's just a fascinating concept to me. And so I just wanted to talk about that. And first off, I wanted to kind of go through a couple different generations and kind of look at how they've been impacted by different I guess eras or different events. I think that's pretty fascinating to me, how groups of people express different qualities by by the era they were born in, or literally like the energy, you know, like the basically the energy at that time, like basically based on how stable it was or how, you know, chaotic it was, determines like a general kind of like quality for that particular generation. I think that's fascinating. It's kind of like relates to astrology, where they're basically kind of saying the same thing, where it's like where you're born has an impact on your generation. Where the planets are placed at a particular place has an impact on your generation. This is basically the same thing, except it's just like the events that occurred within your generation's time has an impact on how your generation perceives itself and the world around it and how it operates. But anyways, let's look at this first thing that I found. Basically, this is from, I don't know, W.J. Schroer. They're a marketing research firm, and basically they put together like a list of like different like eras, generations, and like what their, you know, basically what their qualities were, because in these particular areas. So the Depression era, you have like individuals that tend to be more conservative, compulsive savers, maintain low debt, use more secure financial products like CDs versus stocks. They feel responsibility to leave a legacy to their children. Tend to be more patriotic, oriented toward work before pleasure, respect for authority, have a sense of moral obligation. And so if you're born between 1912 and 1921, that was probably some of the traits that took on. And then we moved to like World War II, and where people shared a common goal of defeating the Axis, if you're in America. And let's see, emphasis more on me, which was similar to Generation Xers. Then we moved to the post-war. This generation had significantly more opportunities in jobs and education as the war ended. However, growth in the Cold War tensions and potential of nuclear war kept this sense of discomfort and uncertainty. So they seek, members of this group seek security, comfort, and familiar and well-known activities and environments. So you were born in 1946 to 1963. Now let's move to kind of like when maybe some of like my parents were born between so baby boomers. So they had like two different generations of baby boomers. They had the baby boomers that when the 60s going on, the the fun days of the 60s, phase one baby boomers, they were a part of that. So basically let's see, what does it say? They're like the protesters, the activists. They had good economic opportunities, were largely optimistic about the potential for America and their own lives. La-di-la-da. So this first part had like a lot more energy, and the second part was kind of after all that transpired, and their coming age was like in the 70s. So, and during this time, this was like post-Watergate, and this generation lost most of its trust in the government. There was some economic struggles, including the oil embargo of 1979. Reinforced a sense of I'm out for me, narcissism, focus on self-help, skepticism over the media and institutions. So that was interesting. Right after that one came Generation Xers, which they called the Lost Generation. And these were like the latchkey kids exposed to lots of daycare and divorce, known as the generation with the lowest voting participation. The generation known as the generation that dropped out without ever turning on the news or tuning into social issues around them. It's kind of like pessimistic. What's in it for me attitudes. I mean, this is definitely just like judgments, but are arguably the best educated generation. 29% obtaining a bachelor's degree or higher. Then we move to the Generation Y, the millennials, born from like 1997 to 94. Let's see. This is incredibly sophisticated technology-wise, immune to most traditional marketing and sales pitches. They grew up with it all. They're much more racially and ethnically diverse, as they were exposed to a lot of cable television programming. They're less brand loyal, and the speed of internet has led to the cohort to being similarly flexible and changing in its fashion. And that was the main thing with that. And then we get to the Generation Z, and they didn't really have much on that. But so that's like kind of a perspective of like leading, like how fascinating is how we as humans change. We change with time, and like we're never the same, and like as things change, like so does our ability to, I guess, like create. I want to say, like, I think our creative abilities change, and through those creative abilities, those that change in focus, we highlight different areas. And like for millennials, like we grew up in this time where like technology was starting to expand in a whole new way, and so we like really kind of like our style, like our work style, our living style, like is very much different than like our parents, like baby boomers or Gen Xers, mostly baby boomers. So and then we have this Generation Z, where they have an incredible amount of opportunities, and I think personally, it's like I'll read some of the things they're saying about Generation Z, but personally I think that Generation Z is going to be like an extremely creative generation, and I say that because they have like all these capabilities that allow you to create much faster and build things that like we couldn't build before. Like it's like I didn't learn coding in like when I was growing up in like elementary school, but now like that's like a thing. That's a thing. It's just like it's like basically it's like coding or programming is going to be a language that like is on the same level as reading. It will be that at that. I mean, if it isn't already, which I'm not 100% sure if it is yet. I'm pretty sure. I know there's a lot of schools that are doing it, but I don't know if it's like there yet. But it will be for sure. And with that knowledge, you can build an incredible amount of different things, and like having like different platforms, and even just like I could say templates that you can basically have like framework for something already set up, and then you can build off of that. That makes a huge difference. And so before I go into more of my thoughts on this, like I definitely want to say something, focus on some other things, but so let's look at this one. I found eight key differences between millennials and Generation Z. They say that they're less focused. So today, Generation Z lives in a world of continuous updates, and they process information a lot faster, which makes sense. However, they have significantly lower attention spans because they're just used to going all over the place, which leads to the second point, where they're better multitaskers, where they're just like used to like having a phone and doing one thing and working on their computer and then also watching TV at the same time, something like that. Not that it's something that I'm used to too as a millennial, but like this is like how it always was for them, and that changes the game a lot more. And the whole multitasking aspect is interesting because there are studies that show that like having this constant shift in like basically the way that like people who have had like this type of technology around their entire lives, like it changes the way that your brain works, and it can be for the good and for the bad, definitely. I think that it can be for the good in a sense that like if you're on the computer a lot, I think it can structure your mind in a way that like helps you to be more organized and effective, but at the same time it can be equally, I think it can completely distort your ability to think effectively and process information and put together, I guess, like streams of thought that are useful. So and that will be interesting moving forward, especially when we get into more of like augmented reality type technologies, where it's like everything is like in your face, and you're more of like you're interacting with the world, but like technology is just there. That'll be interesting. That'll definitely be an interesting aspect of things. And just to see how that affects how our brain processes things, how intuitive, like if we gain intuition or we lose our intuitive abilities, like I'm curious how that will work. It's like, will we become dependent, like so dependent on technology that like it truly changes like how we think? Because they say that millennials they're not actually tech savvy, they're actually tech dependent, because most of us don't actually know how the technologies work that we're actually using. Like most of us don't know how to like code, like for instance, I'm using this open broadcasting software, like I don't know how to code that, I don't know how it necessarily works, I just use it and it works, you know, whereas like millennials, or I mean Generation Zers, will be more about the technology and how how it works, because it's something that it's like they just, you know, it's just like it's not new to them, it's something that is fully embedded within them, and it's something that they're will be fully capable of doing. And so so the experience for millennials is the service, or like the function, whereas like for the Generation Z, it's like the actual technology behind the function will be the focus. Let's see if there's any other interesting ones. They say Generation Z people will be early starters in terms of like in the workplace, like they'll, you know, social media has obviously given us a lot more opportunities in terms of, I mean, there's like 14-year-olds that have like, you know, million people following them on what is it called, like what is that Musical.ly, you know, like and they're starting like t-shirt brands or like different small businesses through their social media, and like they're only like 14, you know, and I think that's definitely going to be the case, especially you get like these young coders that are like starting their own websites. They put together like something that's, you know, a useful platform when they're like, you know, by the time they're 16, like, and then it's just like, well, what's the point of going to school if you already know how to do what you want to do, you know, or you can be hired by a company, you know, by the time you hit 18 or whatever. And on top of that, you know, it's interesting. Another thing they were saying about Generation Zers is that they saw, you know, like some of their brothers, sisters, or even like their parents, like struggle, that were millennials. They struggled and have all these student loan debts, and you know, they kind of saw us kind of fall into this trap, especially during this recession. Now it's like you know, this generation is the one they are kind of like reflecting, and there's some research says that like they're more likely to get an education, and other research says that they're more likely to be more more like less likely to go to school and more likely to be self-taught. And I think the latter. I think like if I were to say, I think this generation will definitely be more self-learners. And I think they're going to discover real quickly that like the current education system, like if it doesn't like evolve, like it's not going to be suitable for them or useful for them. So we'll see. We'll definitely see in time with that. I think it's, you know, so one of the things I wanted to bring up is that like technology is going at such a pace that like within the very near future, everything will be automated. We'll have robots that are doing basically any task that, any like physical laboring task that doesn't require complex thought, and then we'll get to a point where like complex thought is also being taken over by robots or AI devices, and so there will be no need for human elements to be doing those things. And so basically what we're going to move into is a phase where like humans in terms of the workforce are going to be specifically geared towards creative tasks. Like that's going to be the thing. Like it's like if you're not creative, you won't really have there won't be many jobs. And everyone is creative, so that's a great thing. Everyone has that gift, and it's like it comes in many different forms. And so I think it will be interesting because like there will be a very strong necessity to make sure that these younger generations are accessing their creative powers, and if they aren't, it will be a bad thing for all. You know, it's just like it's like we won't thrive if we don't have a generation that is extremely creative. You know, and I think that like with this new technology, like the definite upside to technology is that like they have the capabilities at their fingertips to explore and try things out. And like right off the bat, it's like I don't necessarily like seeing like a little like, you know, 2-year-old play with an iPad all day. You know, I don't like that all day type of thing, you know, but I do like it that they're exploring and playing around with technology, and through that they will discover different creative abilities to create in different ways. And my hope is that like there's more, is that what catches a child's interest is the creative realms of technology rather than the consumption realms. So that's what I can hope, and that's what we need. And so it's like the millennial generation, I think, is very creative within itself. Like, you know, like it's like for me, it's like I will not be caught. I will never be caught dead in a job, or at least maybe for a very short term time, which is like, you know, very like less than 3 months. I will never be caught in a full-time position where like there is no creative. It's like it doesn't allow me to use my creative abilities, like or my like personal sense of judgment, or that like, you know, I can take something that I can take responsibility for and really do it on my own without having like a micromanager. You know, like that's like I need that thing, and I think a lot of my generation needs that as well. I think Generation Z is going to be a very similar way, because I think they're going to be like way more capable than, you know, Generation X or like baby boomers. Like clearly, I mean, I think millennials, because we were kind of born with technology, we'll be able to connect with Generation Z. But I think that as a millennial, I'm like, especially when I hire people like Generation Z people, I'm going to be very much like, I trust you. I think you're way more skilled than me with this. Like I'm going to be competent as to what it is that you're doing, but like I know that you have amazing abilities, and you can do creative things that far exceed what I ever could do in this particular thing, for instance. So it's like graphic design, video, this or that. I think these kids are gonna have a lot more time to experiment when they're little, and so like by the time when they're older, they're just gonna be a lot of them are gonna just be these like masters of like these different art forms, and it'll be interesting to see that. Interesting to see how that works out. I have a positive perspective on it. I think that like I think that like there will be a very positive, very, very strong benefits to technology. Obviously, like with everything, there's always a downside, negative side to everything, and like, you know, how children are parented has a huge impact, obviously, on anyone. And so obviously technology there has to be a balance between like technology and real life. Like that's like, you know, it's like that's like a necessity as well. And from some research studies, it seems that like a lot of Generation Z people are also like, they understand that like you shouldn't like be on your phone like while you're working or this or that, and that also they actually like to talk to people in person rather than doing more like texting and whatnot, which is interesting. So there is kind of like this interesting aspect, is like even though they're like more immersed within technology, they actually are seeking more like personal experiences, which for me is something that you know, I think for our generation is similar in its own sense, where it's like I think more and more of us are like wanting to have like meetup.com got really big because like it's technology that's utilized to actually have real experiences. So like, you know, it's social networking that is like getting you in front of people, getting you in front of and having like real life experiences, rather than like something like Facebook, where it's like really like the opposite, where you're having an experience and then sharing it on the social network, and you're spending like 90% of your time in the social network and like 10% of the time actually doing something about it. So I think that like, you know, it would be, I think that the former will be true with Generation Z, is that they'll look to have more personal experiences because they've already had these interconnected kind of like, they're already connected globally, they're already connected to all these different things, but maybe what they're not connected as much to is like having a real human experience. So we'll see. I don't know. No one really knows, and we'll find out in the next like, you know, 5 years or so. So that'll be really interesting, but I'm optimistic, I'm excited, and yeah. So that's basically all I got for today. Let's see, what else do I want to say today? Yeah, I think I was going to say what I think I'm going to be talking about tomorrow, but I'm still figuring that out, so that's good. And that's what I love about this. I just want to say I love this process. I've already gone through like a couple like ups and downs with it, but like I just feel like this is really great. I'm learning a lot more every day. I'm actually, as I'm streaming more, I've been doing more like doing these type of streams, but also I do gaming streams now, and it's been really fun. And like I'm like, yes, I want to do this every day and just continuing this and building on this. And you know, I'm sure like there will be like a new. I'm sure like early on in 2017, there will be like a new version of these episodes. And also, excuse me, I'm looking to also have some buddies come on, and we're going to talk more like focused on like technology and science and other interesting things, but it'll be more than just me talking, so it'll be like multiple people talking. So that's the goal, is to ultimately expand this to other types of channels, other types of content, so it's not just me, but yeah, that's where it starts with, and I'm okay with that. So anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace and love.